Hello and welcome to Outing History, a mostly gay history podcast, video essay thingy, with me, your host, Lucas Adam. And today I want to talk about one of my favorite acts of protest and one of my least favorite people, Jesse Helms. The protest I'm going to be talking about today is the infamous 35-foot tall inflatable condom with reservoir tip. It's one of my favorite protests. It's one of my favorite stories to tell people when I don't really know how progressive they are, but they want to talk to me because I'm gay and they have a gay cousin, you know what I'm saying? It's just one of my favorite protests, and it's an action I wish we saw more of. At the beginning of COVID, I was like, what if we just wrap a mask around all of these senators and Congress people that are voting against our well-being. Now, I say mostly gay history because I feel like if you're somebody who studies history, or American history at least, you'll know that pretty much everything is rooted in racism, including homophobia and anti-trans. The same people that were trying to keep segregation instated were the same people that were against Roe v. Wade, were the same people that were preventing funding during the AIDS crisis. And speaking of, that is exactly who Jesse Helms was actually. Unfortunately, he might be dead, but a lot of things he did are still affecting our everyday life. So, who is Jesse Helms? Helms was born October 18th, 1921. He is a toxic Libra that never learned that he's the one that should apologize. A toxic Libra that never learned that he was in the wrong. Helms served as a North Carolina senator from 1973 to 2003. He was also a chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee from 1995 to 2001. Before getting into his relationship with the LGBT community, I want to talk about his relationship with Black Americans, American women, and foreign women, and the laws and amendments that he presented that oppressed everybody. I don't think he helped a single person in his line of work, and I just want to give this kind of backstory to help, again, highlight the intersectionality and how hatred can spread from you to me, from me to you, and just because you don't like the same group as an old bald white Republican doesn't necessarily make him your friend either, you know what I'm saying? So, before gay people existed, Helms' main focus was maintaining segregation. Then after 1964, he constantly pushed for loopholes. Secondary focus was fighting to keep abortion illegal in America, and then the year after Roe v. Wade passed, he used his position on the FRC to take rights away from women outside of America. In 1950, Helms worked for Democratic Willis Smith in his Senate campaign. Smith's campaign slogan was "Wake up, white people." So the slogan was meant to scare white people away from integration. Smith unfortunately won the Senate and hired Jesse Helms to be his administrative assistant. In the 1960s, Capital Broadcasting Company had Helms as a conservative commentator on a local news network in North Carolina. He would also use it to push the false narrative that Black people are innately criminals. And despite being a biblical and Jesus-loving man himself, he often spoke out against churches that were anti-war. Because as God said, "Thou shalt not kill," unless Jesse Helms gets some money. Killing in the name of upholding God's word. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? In 1973, Jesse Helms ran for Senate. Initially, Helms was losing to the more liberal candidate. That wasn't until Helms accused his candidate of being less American. He highlighted on how his competitor was Greek and therefore made him less American, less white. And how Americans need Jesse Helms because he's a guy that's just like you, a white man. Helms won the vote by 60%. I'm going to bullet point a couple things he did in Senate. So, in retaliation to Roe v. Wade, so he immediately made multiple attempts to take abortion rights away and to make abortion illegal. Thankfully, he also had a lot of failures. he introduced the Helms Amendment to Foreign Assistance Act, which passed and has been used to ban foreign assistance from funding abortion, even in cases of rape, incest, or life endangerment. Also preventing, so even if a person that needed an abortion was in another country where abortions were legal, if the medical facility that they were resigned at was funded by American dollars, it was illegal to do abortions there. And it was in fact also illegal for the nurses or staff or healthcare providers to inform the patient that abortion is even a medical practice at all. This passed and is still enacted today. We love dead old white man making laws about people experiences that he'll never have. Love it. And then in retaliation to integration, he attempted a lot of loopholes. One thing for sure is that Helms was not a quitter. If people were getting rights, he was fighting to take them away over and over and over again. And in response to integration happening in schools and all around the country, he attempted to pass a bill that would allow schools to turn away Black students under religious beliefs, and he was also trying to push them to get them a tax cut as well, probably to help it pass. Thankfully, that failed. He also attempted to defund buses and public transportation, as that was the main source that a lot of Black Americans were able to keep their job and transfer back and forth to work. One of the ways that they organized for their rights as well. So he was like, we gotta get rid of the buses. He held a 16-day filibuster against making Martin Luther King Day a holiday. His argument was that the economy would collapse if it became a national holiday. He said that it would cost them $12 billion if they made a national holiday, meaning that like government jobs it'd have to be a paid holiday. He was saying that it would cost them $12 billion, when in reality it would only cost $18 million. But a drama queen are we, Helms. And then in retaliation to the AIDS crisis, or in response to the AIDS crisis, he added an amendment to the Supplemental Appropriations Act that would prevent people from HIV from flying into America. It's also had a social impact that prevented people with HIV from flying domestically. Even though it wasn't in law, there were still a lot of people with HIV and with AIDS stating that like they just weren't allowed on a flight regardless of where they were flying. And then the Helms Aid Amendment, which brings us to the protest I want to talk about today. I will say a bit of a disclaimer. When I was trying to decipher these different dates and these different hearings, I was getting a little confused. I did use the AIDStimeline.gov website, but I still just little unsure. So if you know more specifics about this, please inform me. So in 1983, 1985, and 1987, the government gave AIDS-specific funding to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the CDC. And then in 1988, another hearing on the Senate floor happened. This is when Helms introduced 5 of his own amendments, known as the Helms Aid Amendments. The original bill that they were hearing for would authorize $600 million for AIDS research. Helms used biblical reasoning for arguing that the CDC does not make AIDS a national health emergency. Because if the CDC did, they would have to put out a safety program video, which was about a 30-minute video showing gay men how they can have safe sex without spreading HIV or AIDS. It was a video demonstrating how condoms could save lives, and Helms was very against this.
The The senators found that videotape revolting, and indeed it is revolting.
He's saying that this video is telling gay people it's okay.
It's all right if you do it right.
Thus, by educating about safe sex, they are condoning sodomy and letting American morals slip.
This bill, as it now stands, does not make any declaration about abstinence. In fact, it would authorize the expenditure of funds that would encourage and condone sodomy.
Some of the quotes, direct quotes from him are, "I'm not going to stand aside for anyone to say the American taxpayers' money should be used to encourage or condone homosexuality. Americans have a right to know if their taxpayer money is going to promoting sodomy." Basically, if the CDC says, look, here's a safe way to have gay sex, it shows how deaths are medically backed and not God just punishing them for being gay. And Jesse Helms just could not support this. Helms said that the video should promote abstinence. He was very upset that there was nothing about abstinence in the video, which is a biblical lifestyle, I guess you would say. I don't know if it's directly, definitely like abstaining from sex is like a Christian Catholic way of controlling people, essentially. And then he went to falsely argue.
There is not one case of AIDS on record in this country, or as far as I know anywhere else, that did not have its origin in sodomy.
This was a false claim. In 1983, 5 years before the Helms Amendment, the CDC had already released a study explaining how contaminated blood was another way to transfer AIDS. And in 1984, this was how Ryan White, a 13-year-old from Indiana, contracted AIDS through a blood fusion. Screening for blood and HIVs was not invented until 1985, probably because of the agenda being pushed that only gay sex is creating HIV and AIDS. A lot of people were in denial that you could get it any other way, even though there were multiple cases of women at this point that tested positive. They were still very much like only gay sex causes AIDS and that's it, and therefore they didn't have funding or find a reason to fund a blood screening. It's so unfortunate that the homophobia that caused a lack of funding would later harm a lot of people outside the gay community. One type of oppression will eventually affect you. Now, despite the First Amendment stating Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, and all medical proof was showing that condoms save lives, the Helms Amendment passed, meaning the Federal Center of Disease Control was prohibited from funding AIDS research or AIDS programs that promoted, encouraged, or condoned homosexual activities. Basically, they were saying you can't help gay people if you acknowledge that they're gay. Those sources like the gay men's health crisis existed, material that Helms often referred to as perverted. There was no government-backed safety source that was not tarnished by the church or homophobia, which came at a deadly price. For example, in 1983, the CDC ruled out AIDS transmission by casual contact, meaning air, environmental services, and even though that this, was said by the CDC, this research showed that most Americans wanted people with AIDS to isolate and quarantine out of fear that they would contract AIDS just from being in the same room as them. It seems like no matter what the professionals said, it was drowned out by politicians and religious leaders with differing agendas. Unfortunately, a concept we're still hindered by today. This is why Jesse Helms deserved the title Deadlier Than Virus. Peter Staley is an activist known for his influential roles in ACT UP and being the co-founder of Treatment Action Group and AIDSmeds.com. It was Peter who had this "we hit back" idea. As if it were divine intervention, Peter had recently met Twilly Cannon. Twilly was an environmental and migrant activist. He founded Ruckus Society, a nonprofit that educated people on how to take direct action, including dropping large banners from freeways. So step one was getting Helms' address, which was attainable by a gay spy. Much like straight people, gay people are everywhere, including places of employment because unlike the church, gay people have to pay taxes. So we're working. Peter called up somebody who worked in the Hart Senate office building. For the greater good, informed Peter that Helms' home was in Arlington, Virginia, South Glebe Road. Step 2, funding. Peter faxed 3 copies that specialized in custom-made inflatables. He got estimates ranging from $3,500 to $1,500. One morning on the beach in Fire Island Pines, Peter got handed $3,000 in cash from Davis Geffen after he heard the idea from Peter's at the time partner, Kevin. Step 3, a crew of activists were formed. Heads up, I might butcher some of these names. I am so sorry. Sean Strub, which wrote a book, by the way, it's so good, you should read it. Garance Frank Ruta, Mark Allen, Derek Link, Jimmy Serafini, Jason Childers, and Dan Baker. And last but not least, Peter Solly. Step 4, practice. Once the condom was manufactured, the group used Marvin Shulman's well-hidden backyard to practice blowing the condom up. This is where Garance used a stencil to paint the saying, "A condom to stop unsafe politics. Helms is deadlier than a virus." Once they talked out the plan extensively, they made sure the house was empty by ringing the doorbell to Helms' residence the night before. They knew Helms was on the last week of summer recess. However, they wanted to make sure the house was empty to avoid a life sentence for giving a senator a heart attack. CNN and local networks were contacted in advance and told to follow TAG's U-Haul to the residence. Step 5, go time. Their equipment included a portable generator, an extension cord, 2 ladders, rubber mallets, plastic stakes, one of those early clunky cell phones, a small cold air blower for the ground, a large blower with a custom-built stand for the roof, and lastly, a condom made out of parachute material that rolled out, fit into a large duffel bag. Sean Strub and Peter Solly were the ones on the roof. Once the condom descended down the home, they prayed it would take at least 5 minutes for the cops to arrive. Their prayers were answered. 7 minutes later, the first cop showed up just as the reservoir tip was filling with air. One of the TV crew started filming a complaining neighbor who allegedly happened to be Beck Norton Dunlop, wife of Helms' administrative assistants. She was recorded saying, "You guys don't want to tangle with these people because you don't want to get AIDS. I know." In his article that I'm getting this story from, Peter's typed, "They didn't know what to do at first. Shoot the thing?" I honestly, modern day, the cops probably would start shooting a giant condom. I can see it happening. After everyone's information was taken, it was just up to Helms to press charges. The cops didn't really do anything. In fact, once all the information was taken and all the news outlets got the footage that they wanted, the cops actually just let the group take down the inflated condom and just kind of go about their day. The only punishment they did receive was a parking ticket for parking the U-Haul in the wrong direction. Robert Hilferty filmed the action and did some interviews. Here's some footage from TAG.
Just let it drop. put a condom over Jesse Helms' house this morning in Arlington, Virginia.
I'm here today because Jesse Helms is the devil. Jesse Helms is, I think, got to be one of the most evil men in America and has worked for years to do as much as he possibly can to ensure the continuance of the AIDS epidemic.
He is responsible for anti-gay legislation and also filibustering important AIDS legislation in the Senate.
Also for opposing abortions for poor women, which is an issue for HIV-positive women.
We're here to basically say, you know, you mess with us and you're going to wake up one morning with a condom on your house.
Driveway and off of my vehicles. I mean, this is private property. That you would come and disrupt a neighborhood like this? I mean, Senator Helms hasn't disrupted any of your neighborhoods. Fight Helms! Fight AIDS! Fight Helms!
You mess with us and you're going to wake up one morning with a condom on your house.
Save politics.
Yeah!
Save politics. It's a must.
Stop Jesse Helms!
Liberty in the United States.
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Free healthcare.
And make sure you wear.
We're the TAG Helms 7.
Wear a condom.
And we tag his butt.
Thank you for joining me and listening to me talk about gay history. First video, so it's not going to be as smooth as I probably would love or perfect, but if I focus on perfect, I just won't fucking do it. And I really want to do it. So, whatever. I also want to kind of apologize for, you know, any fans or air conditioning that you hear, but I'm not really sorry because I live in the desert. It's 111 degrees today, and I'm not sacrificing my body temperature for audio quality. If gay people sweat, the bigots win. Alright, well, thank you for joining me. Hopefully you'll join me next time.
How will this affect you and your job?
Darling, I don't have a job. I'm on welfare. I have no intention of getting a job as long as this country discriminates against homosexuals. There's only homosexuals, bisexuals, and trisexuals, darling. And there's no straight people.